Wait for the video. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Foxborough Board of Select meeting for November 26, 2013 at the Foxborough High School Media Center. At 6:15 tonight, the Board of Selectmen will go into executive session to discuss strategy regarding litigation matter, ABCC appeal of stadium alcohol liquor licensing matter. At 6:45 p.m. approximately, the board will come in to discussion of petition to reconsider vote on stadium alcohol licensing matters. 7:15, we'll go back into executive session, possibly on the exact same thing, executive session to discuss strategy regarding litigation matter, ABCC appeal of stadium alcohol licensing matter. 8 o'clock, Police Chief O'Leary, feasibility study for regionalization of emergency communications center. 8:15, Loss Control Committee, no overnight parking signs, municipal lots. 8:30, Board of Selectmen MIA game fees. 8:45, Board discussion, Selectmen discussion on abuse policy update. 8:50, Board of Selectmen Racino Casino discussion. 8:55, open meetings. And 9:10, go back into executive session to discuss conduct strategy session on preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining session on contract negotiation with non-union personnel. Boyden Library, MISA, MFT, AFT, AFL, CIO. And then the Highway and Water, AFC, AFS, CME. And then we'll have action as usual. Jeannie, will you listen to the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll take a motion at this point to go into executive session.
I move that it's now 6:18 that we go into executive session.
You have to read exactly.
Oh, okay. Executive session to discuss strategy regarding litigation matter ABCC appeal of stadium alcohol license matters.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call vote?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Jeannie, sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. We'll be back after our executive session. Thank you. Okay. Welcome back to the November 26th Board of Select meeting. We ran a little late in executive session, but we're coming back here to discussion of petition to reconsider vote on stadium alcohol licensing matter. And prior to that, I did not have citizens input on the agenda. Is anybody here for citizens input?
It's not on the agenda.
Okay, there's 3. All right, so we can't?
It's not on the agenda.
All right, so we'll go right to the discussion on petition of reconsidering vote for stadium alcohol licensing matter. Is anybody here to speak for that? Is anybody speaking for the whole group, petition first?
I can't hear you.
Oh, the mics? Is anybody here that's speaking for the whole entity of people? Please come up to the mic, or the table. Sit down at the table, please. And identify yourselves and...
Yeah, we had already opened up a meeting.
We had open
Yeah.
session earlier.
I've been here for a while.
Okay, just for the record, names and addresses, please.
Steve Harding, 14 North High Street.
Paul Farmer, 298 Cocastle Street.
Welcome. Who would like to start?
I'd just like to open by saying thank you for having us on the agenda this evening. We have a series of speakers who are going to present the issues that we have surrounding the Splitsville Howl at the Moon licensing process in the hopes that the Board of Selectmen will reconsider their position. Given the information that will be presented and the overwhelming support that has been shown to us throughout this process, we ask, on behalf of all of the petitioners, that this Board of Selectmen reconsider their vote based solely on the original liquor license request submitted. If I may, I'll have the people who wish to speak on this topic come up.
I thought you were going to have a speaker and talk about the petition that was filed, and then, you know.
I would say, well, Steve, why don't you say what you have to say first, and then we'll move on from there.
All right. The real issue here is not about Splitsville or Howl at the Moon. Many people feel that the real issue stems from the mitigation deal the town made with the craft organization over the creation of Patriot Place, a deal the town voted for to accept overwhelmingly. Prior to Patriot Place, the town voted to change our zoning bylaws on this stretch of Route 1 to allow the creation of such a destination development. It was in the Sessions Law Acts of 1999, Chapter 16, where we became a state economic development area. Along with the designation that came certain responsibilities. One of those responsibilities was to allow growth, such as Patriot Place, to help support the investment. We accepted this by our town meeting votes in 1999 and 2006. Patriot Place has exceeded forecasted revenues by 50%, and police calls are 25% lower than forecasted. Clearly, the public safety issue isn't as bad as being portrayed. There is always room for improvement, but just because we might be having issues with one or two places up there does not mean we stop building them all. Chief O'Leary and Patriot Place officials have worked out a great preliminary plan to handle any additional issues Splitsville would bring. That is why it is so surprising to hear 3 of you cite public safety as your reason for denying the liquor license. It does not make sense. It is more likely that some of you might be hiding behind public safety stance as a way to leverage additional monies out of the craft organization and Patriot Place. I fully support the BOS debating the issue of additional mitigation from Patriot Place, but let's do it at an open meeting where facts will be the focus and proceed from there. We can't have 1 or 2 rogue selectmen trying to impose their agenda without the backing of the entire board. This is just bad business, and it sets an awful precedent that will forever taint our relationship with the town's largest taxpayer. Ms. Prue, I think you in particular seem to have an axe to grind with the craft officials, as you repeatedly insist on attaching conditions to establishments of Patriot Place.
Steve, I asked anybody that was speaking tonight to not mention anybody individually, to talk to us as a board. Please don't single out any board members with an opinion,
Okey-doke.
okay?
Some think that having such a large amount of liquor licenses in one area is a bad thing, but the opposite is just as plausible. Having all these venues together make it easier for the paid police details to oversee and nip any problems in the bud. The BOS may have acted a little prematurely, with 3 of its members citing public safety as the reason for their denial, especially after hearing no issues from the chief who visited the venues. Before you turn away $100,000 in annual revenue and up to 125 jobs, the very least you could have done was to visit the Howl of the Moon in person. Our chief did, and he's on record as saying that he thinks it would fit right in up there. Some are concerned about the additional 700 people up at Patriot Place, but that is still far fewer than the 1,000+ that Showcase Live used to draw, and they have scaled back their operation drastically. All 5 of you are on record supporting Splitsville, but having concerns about Howl at the Moon. Splitsville is a 3-pronged business: bowling, dining, and lounge entertainment. The Splitsville proposed that Patriot Place would use Howl at the Moon to manage the entertainment lounge, but with or without Howl at the Moon, the business plan for Splitsville would still be the same. They would still have the 3-pronged. They would still have the lounge and the entertainment. This board is focusing on how to make this proposal work and not focusing. This board should be focusing on how to make this proposal work and not focusing on trying to change it. They are the ones making the $4.5 million investment. I'm sure Splitsville did all kinds of research as to why they felt they needed the additional draw of a place like Howl at the Moon. It's their money. Let's not tell them how to spend it. Let's just wish them good luck and welcome to our town. One last point. We have a stadium advisory committee to vet out events at Gillette Stadium. Maybe we should have a Patriot Place advisory committee that would be charged with vetting out potential projects up there and advising the Board of Selectmen. Clearly, the Board of Selectmen has too much on their plate and cannot be expected to fully investigate each and every potential business located up at Patriot Place.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Farmer, so
Yes, sir.
who else do you have in mind? I mean, I'm gonna,
We have an opening statement, and then we have a person who'd like to present the actual petitions.
all right, the reason I had this meeting put this on the agenda is because when we had open mic night, as we always do, a lot of people wanted to speak. and they didn't have the opportunity because we had 4 public hearings, maybe 5 public hearings that night. That's why we're here, okay? So I don't want it, and I'm gonna say it again, if it gets, you direct it to this as a board. We are an entire board of selectmen. If you single out individuals with accusations or anything else, I'm gonna stop it.
I don't
I've
believe
said it
anybody
publicly,
in
and
the,
I will stop it. So I appreciate everybody refrain from that. So who's next?
I don't believe anybody in the statements that we have coming up is singling out
Okay.
anybody in particular. But Joanne Hensis has the first statement.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Joanne Hensis. I live at 6 Petty Place. We are here on our own behalf and representing the desire of at least 800-plus people who signed our petitions to respectfully request the board reconsider the liquor license applications recently denied at Patriot Place. We understand the grave responsibility the board has in being the local licensing authority, and we know you take that responsibility seriously. However, it does not appear you are exercising it with equal vigor across the entire community. Places like Trader Joe's and the Saga Hibachi Steakhouse had a very difficult time getting approved for liquor licenses by this board, despite tremendous public support and obvious benefit to the community, financially and otherwise. When you compare their experience to other places like Jake and Joe's and Asian Ginger, it becomes very clear the main issue was geography and little else. We believe good applicants would be of tremendous service to the community are being caught up in the politics as existing between the town and the owners and developers of Patriot Place. We would like to see that end. The application, which includes Splitsville and Howl at the Moon, received support from not only the public, but from our chief of police, our state representative, our state senator, and 100% of those who took the time to comment at the public hearings. We are confident in the ability of both this board and our fine police department to continue to manage the public safety in this town at the high level that has been the norm. They said this would work, and we have seen little evidence that would contradict that opinion. We ask you to show your faith in your public safety officials and your constituents and reconsider and grant this license. It would improve the quality of life in Foxborough, contribute to our long-term financial security, and start to rehabilitate the anti-business reputation our town has been unfairly gaining. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you could submit those to the record, because we do need a copy of those.
Yep, we have copies.
I do have
Okay,
them for
could
you.
you do that as you speak? That way it doesn't get lost.
I can give Bob the entire package if you'd like.
Okay, just make sure, do you have a copy of
Yeah, well,
yours?
they have all of them.
Okay, because it needs to go for the record.
You get mine?
Yes, I added yours to the bottom.
Mrs. Garber?
Hello, Ellen Garber, 3 Tarian Drive. I was here a couple of weeks ago to tell you about the petition that was being circulated, and I just want to give you all an update on that. As you know, a number of businesses and residents have been circulating a petition on just this subject to ask you to reconsider your vote as a board. And last week, you were given copies of just over 600 signatures, and here today are another couple of hundred from other concerned residents. This list is growing, and we now have close to over 900 to share with you. So we will make sure that you get copies of those next week as well. And just a reminder about the intent of the signature drive. It's nothing more but so much in showing you that there's so much community support on this issue based on what we've learned in the hearings. And that's what we're hearing most from the residents who are interested in seeking out the opportunity to put their names in front of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,
Anybody else wish to be heard?
Linda Walsh would like to speak next.
Linda Walsh, 8 Pond Ave. I have a good understanding of how difficult some of these decisions are to make in doing the best and the safest for our town. That's why I was relieved that you folks sent the chief to check out firsthand Splitsville and Howl at the Moon. He reported back that he felt comfortable after discussions with both parties that it would be a great fit for Patriot Place. As citizens and taxpayers, we have complete faith and trust in the proven abilities of our public safety heads and departments to continue their outstanding job of overseeing our safety in all areas. No one is better in that position to make that particular judgment. Their opinion and findings should be given the utmost consideration and weight in determining the public impact of any business of this type. When we, as a town, overwhelmingly voted to welcome both the stadium and Patriot Place, we did so with an eye towards the future. We knew this would become a destination type of venue, and it has been more successful than either the craft organization or the town had hoped. Part of that success is the recognition that Patriot Place be a venue where families, children, and adults can all find reasons to attend and make those businesses profitable and keep tax dollars flowing into Foxborough. As we know, liquor licenses play a key role in that endeavor. I read in last week's Sunday Globe that more and more towns have embraced a similar strategy as a way of bolstering economic growth. Richard Lyman, a District of Columbia-based specialist in urban revitalization, said that using alcohol in restaurants as a tool for growth is a formula that has become accepted wisdom in the business circles. He stated that he doesn't see that it's possible to bring back commercial districts without a focus on eating and drinking establishments. On a personal note, I did visit Howl at the Moon with a couple of friends and was impressed with the management team and security personnel. As they had mentioned during the hearings, they card every person. There is a person in charge of counting heads at the door, and as individuals leave, others are let in. There were all ages of folks having a good time singing along with the three-piece band who were taking requests from the floor. I did take note of some of the things offered there, which are specifically banned in Foxborough and will not be part of the business proposed for our town. The Splitsville business model includes adult beverages as part of what they do, and I want their business to be welcomed here in Foxborough. Our success at managing these licenses and the record of performance by our safety personnel in enforcing our regulations clearly show we are able to handle businesses of this type. The people who signed our petitions understand this. They understand that Splitsville and Howl at the Moon are one business created to service the widest possible range of people and offer entertainment and recreation for families, kids, and adults. Foxborough residents are smart people, as you know. I hope no one makes the mistake of thinking they somehow don't understand the issues here. They do, and they're upset that the town is becoming seen as anti-business, anti-growth, and relatively unconcerned with keeping our long-term financial outlook secure. In the end, that is exactly what we and they are asking you to do by reconsidering your position on this matter. Thanks.
Okay. Is that it?
There's three more short statements, I believe.
Okay.
Mike Stewart.
Mr. Stewart.
Good evening. Just a couple of members of the board. I'm really thankful for the opportunity to be able to speak to you this evening. Every year, towards the town, public and safety officials handle as many as 68,000 people on a continuing basis, multiple days, many days a year, and a good portion of the person are drinking alcohol. This is handled safely and efficiently by our town and public safety officials. Yet we now are told we are threatened somehow by a business featuring bowling for children and their families, entertainment for adults in the evenings. The fact is that the maximum capacity of this venue filled to the rafters will be 750 people. Chief O'Leary has stated several times they can be handled easily. We find the comments from some of the board puzzling unfair, especially given the chief's professional opinion. Reconsidering and granting the original proposal makes sense, helps the community, stimulates business, provides consistency in treatment of all businesses in Foxborough. To add another reputable, well-run business to an area that has shown it can support them is a good choice, not a bad one. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy? Excuse me, Nancy Kamani was next, I'm sorry. I gave her the nod.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I thought you wanted us to continue with our...
I don't know who she's with.
No, I have no problem with my turn. I thought you were addressing
I don't know
the
if
ball.
she's for it or against it, I have no idea.
I'm Nancy Campanine. I live at 1 Messenger Ave. And I'm here to support the board's prior decision. I felt it was the right decision. I was surprised to hear that people were dismayed that the board went out and did independent investigation. I think this is an issue where there's no such thing as too much information. I think that you can get a different kind of information. I completely respect Chief O'Leary. I believe that he got information. I believe he's got a report, but I think that there's a real benefit to unscripted interviews, unscripted visits, things that have not been set up for and paid for by applicants for these matters. In addition, I have to say that I discussed this with my daughter, and she's just out of college. Well, a couple of daughters, but she's just out of college. She loves Howl at the Moon, but she laughed at the thought that it could possibly exist as part of a bowling alley, because that's just not the kind of place that she sees it. She, of course, will be happy to go up there if it's up there. I was then later dismayed to find, I thought I support the idea of a bowling alley, but I was shocked to discover that the bowling alley, that my son will not be able to get in the bowling alley after 8 p.m. because he's under age 21, and it's going to be closed off at that point to those kids. And so somebody said, we had the a cappella group singing out here, and somebody mentioned, oh, well, maybe they'll be able to sing Howl at the Moon. Not after 8 p.m. they won't, because they're not going to be in there with an adult. As far as, I also read the same article Linda read, and what that article focused on was the fact that in order to revitalize the centers of our towns, we need liquor licenses. We have plenty of liquor licenses down there. I'm kind of shocked to find that it appears we have a new liquor license when the liquor license for Toby Keith's Bar and Grill had to be brought from a different area of town. And I can't help but think, if that liquor license had been available, why didn't we use it for Toby Keith's and save a real true liquor license for a nice restaurant in the center of town, something that could help revitalize the center and maybe not result in, okay, 750 people, then let's say 250 semi-drunk drivers on the way home out of that venue. As somebody who lives squarely between Waxy's and Patriot Place, I'm not too crazy about having my 16-year-old son driving on the road when those people are all coming out of these places. The other thing I want to say is I went to the meeting back when the liquor licenses were first drafted. I voted for the 12 liquor licenses. But as I count it now, I think it's a simple matter of arithmetic. There are a certain number of drinking establishments up there now. If this is granted, there are 2 more. And right now there's 14, not the 12 we voted on, 14 liquor licenses plus the package store at that place that its name I can't remember. And so this will be, and I have to wonder with this kind of construct, with a building that has really 2 distinct businesses in it, both using the same liquor license to run 2 different bars, what's to stop from taking one of the other blocks down there? I mean, maybe there is a way to stop it, but knocking down the walls between that building and putting in multiple bars, all governed by the same corporate entity, which is the technical license holder. We could end up with way beyond what we thought we were getting when if you start a precedent like this. I mean, to me, this seems like you're acting as though the liquor licenses are taffy and can just be stretched around in a way that wasn't anticipated. And I'm on board. I agree. We voted for 12 liquor licenses, and that's what I think it should be up there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any,
Yeah, somebody else.
Okay?
yeah, I don't see anybody else
I
raised.
was be pointing behind
There's
me.
somebody over there, too.
Where?
Stephanie
Oh, Bob.
McGowan, I live at 19 Rhodes Lane. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I had printer problems today, so I'm old-fashioned, handwritten statement. So I'd be more than willing to hand this in, or
That's fine.
I could type
No,
it
that
up
is
and
fine.
get it to you guys.
No, that is fine.
All right, super. I want to say one quick thing before my statement. Just a little bit of rebuttal with that nice lady said. I don't think our board did visit any place. I think Chief O'Leary's the only one that visited, so that's why we have to go by what he said. I'm sure it's time constraints. You guys probably often take time to visit, and that's why you send your Chief of Police, who's in charge of public safety, to go do that. So anyhow, I'm guessing that's why the board did not visit these places. But I am respectfully coming before the board to ask you to reconsider your decision for a transfer of an existing liquor license so that Splitsville, with entertainment provided by Howl at the Moon, can open a Patriot Place. At the last meeting, even board members who voted no on the transfer had high praise for the Splitsville concept and its owners. So let me ask you, Why would a successful business ask Howl at the Moon to join them here at Patriot Place if they thought Howl at the Moon would tarnish their reputation or put their liquor license in jeopardy? This unique concept will bring successful business partners together. If I were going to make a $4.5 million business investment, I would want to surround myself with the best. I would also want to have a great relationship with the community I was entering. Part of that relationship involves being compliant with all the stipulations put upon them regard to alcohol service. This restaurant, lounge, and bowling concept is the way of the future. Standalone bowling establishments just don't exist anymore, and the reason is because they can't profit. A successful establishment needs a mix of alcohol and food sales to become profitable and to sustain such a large business investment. Most food and beverage establishments run at roughly a 15 to 18% alcohol cost and a 30 to 35% food cost, which means it's just the numbers say that there's more profit in the beverage sales, hence the need for a liquor license to make the business work. And given the numbers we were told at the first couple of meetings, with Splitsville being a 75% of the business, they told us that they have a 70% food and a 30% alcohol sales. While Howl at the Moon, which would be 25% of this business, said that they run with a 25% food cost and a 75% alcohol cost, which I know is very scary numbers because they're very lopsided. But once you combine these two business establishments, what you will end up with is actually a 60% food cost and a 40% 60% food sales and 40% alcohol sales. So that's a big drop from that 75% number that was mentioned that happens at Howl at the Moon in Boston. Putting these two businesses together will dramatically drop the alcohol sales compared to the entire business as an entity. Now, this business model is very similar to Jake and Joe's. I was told Jake and Joe's runs at a roughly 60% 60% food and 40% alcohol. So putting this business together isn't that much of a difference. People-wise, may be different, but I know that 75% was a thorn in your side, why you didn't want that to come here. That number will dramatically drop putting two businesses together. Also, most establishments do get discounts on their on their insurance liability based on having a higher food sale number. So it is to the establishment's best interest to raise your food sales because that will bring your insurance down. And I think it is in our bylaws, our liquor laws, that all the employees have to be serve safe, certified, or been trained properly, which also brings their liability insurance down too. So these are things that the business will want to comply with because it brings their costs down. So, and I also feel that it's not the board's decision as to what the people really want to do for recreation. It's just, that's the way the world runs nowadays. People want to and are going to consume alcohol. I think the board's focus should be on making sure liquor license holders are compliant with state as well as our town liquor laws. I've been a patron at both Splitsville and Howl at the Moon, loving the experience of both places, and I'm looking forward to bringing my family to Splitsville and Howl at the Moon, the Patriot Place, if you do the right thing and reconsider your decision. I believe this is a perfect fit for Patriot Place. And what I would ask you to do is maybe, in your reconsidering, do a little homework about the numbers of the food sales and bringing the two businesses together and not as separate. And those numbers may make you feel more comfortable about letting a place like that come up to Patriot Place. Thank you.
Thank you. Young lady?
I can read it.
Good evening. My name is Joan Stafford. I live at 3 Bassett Street. And I would like to say I'm a big supporter of bowling. And I think it's a great family entity, and I'd like to support the selectmen that voted that way. And I bowled and lived in many different states across the country, and that's how I'm well acquainted with what bowling is. And I would like to differentiate between entertainment as a family structure and drinking. And I would like to see that separate. And maybe to a certain extent, they could have some food and perhaps some drinking, but I don't think howling at the moon is the way to go. So I hope you'll continue with your thoughts.
Okay.
And thank you very much.
Thank you. Bob? Is there anyone else left after Bob?
Amy.
Well, it's a tough crowd tonight. Bob Grabowski, 232 East Street. I'm glad they voted the way they did. I'd like to say a few things about it. I know that some people are very disappointed by the board's decision about this application, and I'm trying to understand that. But people also have to understand that as a community, we're going to have differing opinions about certain issues from time to time, issues that we may feel very strongly about. In the recent past, we had a very intense debate in our town about the casino gambling. People on both sides of the issue had very strong feelings, and many differing viewpoints were debated. In the end, it all came down to a simple vote for the selectmen of your choice. Lorraine Brew and Ginny Capola were elected, and soon after, so was John Gray. The majority of people in our town came forward and voted for these folks because they shared with them the same vision of our community and what its values should be. We knew that we could count on them to vote in a sensible way that would protect the safety and the best interests of our community. In other words, I feel like we voted for selectmen and not yes men. It now seems that a lot of the same people and businessmen who lost on the casino issue are upset with the Splitsville Howl at the Moon decision. Well, that's unfortunate, but I believe that the selectmen were elected to have acted in a full measure of careful consideration in this matter. The majority decided that the Howl at the Moon franchise is not an appropriate venue for our community, and I agree with them. That may upset some people, which is a shame, but the safety of our community is the first responsibility of our selectmen, and I think that they have met that responsibility with intelligence and with courage. You know, some pretty disrespectful things have been written concerning this issue, and I think that's a shame. Although I didn't agree with Mark Sullivan and Jim DeVillis' vote on this particular issue, it doesn't mean that I feel I need to...
I thought we were going to talk about the board, not individual names.
So sorry. Well, I didn't vote with the folks. What I'm trying to say is, I wouldn't criticize them so harshly about it. What I want to say is this. I happen to think that all of our selectmen are really good people. We all have a right to disagree with them if we choose, but we should do so respectfully and not in a derisive manner. All of our selectmen are exceptionally fine individuals who deserve our respect and gratitude for what they do. They give us a tremendous amount of their time, they put in an enormous amount of work, and they do it all without any financial compensation. Lorraine Brew and Ginny
Hey, all right, last time.
Sorry, they both
last
wrote
time.
excellent letters in clear, concise, and compelling terms.
He's still saying it.
All right, Bob.
I guess I'm blowing it here, Mark.
Well, I made the request earlier that you keep it as a board. You let two
Well-
slip by, and now you're, I know it's not intentional in a way. I know it's how you read it down, but you need to keep it directed as a board.
Please
Two
res-
board members, three board members, 2 against, 2 for, or something like that.
Right.
I'm just trying to keep this fair.
Okay, well, I guess what I want to say is, there may be a lot more said about this, but I hope it's all said in a respectful way, and that people don't get nasty about it, and that we can all come together and decide what the best thing to do is. I feel you did the right thing, and I appreciate it. I knew it took a lot of courage and a lot of intelligence and a lot of guts to do it, and I'm happy it did. I think we need to pause about this and really take a much harder look at it, what it's going to mean for our community. That thing's banging away up there till 2 in the morning every night, and everybody's pouring out of it, inebriated. How many police are we going to need? We want more police and more crime. We want less crime and less police. I know people want to have fun, they want to go bowling, they want to get loaded, they want to have a good time. But we have to think about what direction that's taken our community, what it's going to look like 5, 10 years down the road. When is exotic dancing okay? You know, it's a slippery slope. I would just say I'm happy that the board voted the way they do, and I hope they'll continue to exercise a good deal of caution in this matter. Okay.
Thank you.
a lot. I don't have a copy because it mentions people's names. Thank you all.
One young lady ahead of you. That's it.
Hi, I'm Amy LaBrush, and I live at 135 Chestnut Street in Foxborough. Being a mother of 3 and involved with many nonprofit groups in town, I know how important it is to have socially conscious corporations amongst our midst. We are lucky to have such a large amount of nonprofit groups in town that volunteer their time and talent, and these groups depend on businesses to support them in monetarily as well as in-kind donations of their services. Splitsville presented several ways to help support the communities there at your last meeting. It was suggested by the board to Google Howl at the Moon. And that's what I did, and found a long list of their community support. And I have a few examples. And they're all from this area, so all the Boston area. McCourt Foundation, it's for Alzheimer's. Greg Hill Foundation, St. Baldrick's, For the Love of Shane, the Matt Light Foundation, Phantom Gourmet, the Joey Fund for Cystic Fibrosis, Williams Syndrome Associate, Mass Housing and Shelter Alliance, Hits for Kids with Kevin Euclid, Alzheimer's Association, fundraiser for Officer Richard Donahue, and the United Way. After doing some research on my own, I have to agree with Chief O'Leary. Splitsville and Howl at the Moon would be a good fit here at Patriot Place. Thank you for your time.
I'm Jim Cobry, General Counsel of the Craft Group. I just wanted to say a couple of things about some information that may not have been accurate that was spoken a little earlier today. The first item is the idea that this facility is going to go 21 and older at 8 p.m. During the public hearing portion of this, I think the applicant mentioned that they have no firm policy about this, that there's no set time at which this facility is going to convert to 21 and older. So the woman's concern that her son would not be able to bowl at certain periods of time is just not consistent with what the testimony was during the public hearing. So I hope to clear that up. The second thing, and a little bit more important, is we're not talking about two distinct applications. What we're talking about is one integrated concept. And it's a concept that involves bowling, it involves dining, it involves dancing, it involves drinking. And it is a concept that's going to invest $4.5 million. They're going to create 125 jobs. They're going to contribute to the tax base. And in order for that to work, the legs of the stool all need to be there. The bowling in and of itself will not support that type of investment. But the concept of having all of them integrated, all of them under one particular manager, all of them contributing responsibly and following the rules and regulations, that will work, and that will be a great amenity for Patriot Place and for the town of Foxborough. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No, I'd just like to say that I think when the board made its vote 2 weeks ago, there was a lot of concern about Howl at the Moon. And to be honest with you, I don't think that you guys really did your homework about Howl at the Moon, because I really delved into Howl at the Moon. And if you took Howl at the Moon out of the equation, you're still going to get the same building. You all said you love Splitsville, but you get to get the same thing. The only difference is going to be the entertainment's not going to be as nice. I mean, there is no other difference, unless you can tell me what the difference is, because I did 2 weeks worth of research on this and I came up with no difference at all. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. The board would like to have a discussion on this?
If I can make a suggestion, I know, I mean, if I look where this is going, and it's not confidential, I mean, there's been an appeal from the craft organization, so we're going down the path of trying to sort this out, and it could take anywhere from a day to who knows. And there's going to be an outcome. It's going to be a long process. If I can suggest, we take 2 weeks. Mark and John meet with representatives of Splitsville, a craft organization. Maybe the application, they can do something a little different, something a little nicer, something a little less. Some clarification on, you know, and I know Nancy Campany, and I was surprised when she said that there was going to be a time when kids weren't allowed in there, and Mr. Cobry is saying something different. So I took the time. I did go to Howl at the Moon. I spent a few hours there on a Saturday night or a Friday night. There are misconceptions. There's been a lot of stuff written in the paper, but if we can take 2 weeks, if we want to call it a 2 week where we consider reconsidering and then come back on December 10th, we've had it that way. We'd have a little more time to go through some of the stuff, and if something can change in the application, I know there was a lot of stuff that was brought up about different size drinks, and if there was some consideration, some concessions that you and John could work out and bring back in 2 weeks, and then I think would be in a little bit better place. Obviously, when you've got a petition with a great amount of people signing it, there's a mindset out there. Maybe we missed it, maybe we didn't. In fairness to the vote against it, there was a lot of people that have come back to me. I think they're a little quieter. They're not blogging, but there are people that think the decision that the board made was a good decision. So I think there are people on both sides, but I think 2 weeks to get a little more information and then take a second look at it, I think would do a lot of good, not just for the board, but for the town and on both sides. I mean, neither one of us are going away. The craft organization and the bars and the restaurants and future development versus the board. And, this is one thing that we're doing, and we've got 12 other things before and after this agenda. It would make it a little bit easier, I think, for 2 weeks of a reprieve and working together, and then come back on December 10th.
Ginny?
No, I have no comments.
All right.
No, almost that.
John?
One observation, I happened to pull up some executive session minutes from last year. It was actually September 25th. There was a term sheet that the craft organization gave to the Board of Selectmen. They were looking for 8 new liquor licenses. There was discussion, and I won't go through the details, but you can look these up, but the board at that point said they would not support any nightclub establishments, but would consider supporting licenses for restaurants. It seems that this board is consistent with last year's board. It's the concern that we're operating a nightclub and that the focus is on alcohol consumption and subsequently public safety. So I just wanted to make that clear, is that last year's board, I wasn't on it, said basically the same thing, that they would not support nightclub establishments up at Patriot Place. So just to make that a fact.
Okay, is that it? Okay. Does the board want to digest this, or is it?
Well, actually, I think Jimmy's suggestion is probably good. There was someone in the audience that said that you ought to check out some more facts, and I think that would be appropriate. But if there can be meetings, I think, with the craft organization, I think that might shed some new light on some topics. But I think a 2-week reprieve to digest all this and to settle down and make a good decision, I think that would be worthwhile.
Well, I know we have a December 3rd meeting in between it for setting the tax rate.
We have one in the next 3 weeks, the 3rd, the 10th, and the 17th, and then it's done. We're not until
January.
January.
I'm not sure the exact date.
It wouldn't be, isn't
be the probably first week in January.
So, it's been a heated topic, and I'll say this publicly. It takes me back a little bit when you have to sit up here and watch your fellow board members get slammed. I don't blog. I don't read the blogs. I know we take our hits for situations that people don't agree with, and nobody's taken more. And it's not giving me any pleasure to sit up here and watch everybody get assaulted in the papers, the blogs, whatever. It's actually disheartening. Everybody up here is up here because they want to do the right thing for the town. That's why I'm trying to keep this debate as fair as possible. I understand the emotions get up, and it gets frustrating, but you know what? It's pretty frustrating up here too. And there's a lot more things on our agenda than one issue, and we're spread pretty thin. So, but if you can believe it, I did too go to Howl at the Moon, and I hadn't been to a nightclub since 1988. Mainly because my wife would never let me go, but I observed some things. I tell you,
Did you steal that?
I know I asked for it, and I actually have a receipt that I paid to go there. None of this would be acceptable to me, these 86-ounce buckets, 24-ounce bone drinks, I don't know, my glasses on, signature cocktails, whatever. This is not acceptable, and I think we debated that on the board pretty vividly. But I had a good time. I enjoyed myself. I got out of the house. And I felt like the overage 50-year-old partier. But,
If I can say, I went with Mark, and it was like taking the cable guy. I was embarrassed. It was horrible. I don't think he's ever been out of the house, never mind Boston.
that's because I work harder than Jim, but, so anyways,
Mark, did you get a chance, I saw them pull the menu up, the proposed menu. Did they give you guys a copy of that?
I actually gave it to a friend of mine who has gluten problems.
So you guys can see a proposed
This is
menu
getting
for here?
off.
Yeah.
What?
You're getting off.
All right, I'm trying to get back.
Okay.
So anyways, you know, I think that Jimmy's right. Well, me and John, is that what you suggested, meet with council, and see if we can find some kind of happy medium here, something that's going to satisfy both sides. If it happens, it happens. But I'll tell you what, if this board votes again, 3-2 against it, I respect that. And I hope you do too. And if it votes 3-2 in favor or 5-1 in favor, I want you to respect that too. Because it's just not what's indicative of this town, all right? So,
All right, so I'd like to make a motion for the next 2 weeks, that Chairman Sullivan and Selectman Gray meet with the Splitsville representatives for the purpose of a better understanding and the purpose of some give and take concessions on both sides, and come back to us on December 10th with a recommendation either to reconsider or not to reconsider for the discussion.
motion made, is there a second?
Can I amend that, actually? We're going to have discussions. We don't know where they're going to go.
I think that's what I was trying to say. Maybe I didn't say that.
read
To come
that?
back for discussions on December 10th.
Right, thanks. I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, let's move on.
Thank you.
All right, seeing that we're not going to go into the executive session at 7:15, because we never get out of it until 7:15. 8 o'clock, Chief O'Leary, I think we're right on time. Discussion on the feasibility study for Regional Energy Communication Center. Edward, I know we passed these out.
Anything in the packet?
Packet quite
Was
some
that from
time
last
ago.
time?
Right. I'll give a specific briefing, just to update the board
Oh, sorry.
as a preliminary.
Excuse me, people, we're trying to have a meeting still. If you could take your conversations outside, I'd appreciate it. Oh, the camera's still on you, Ed, so. Okay, Edward, so would you please continue?
As the board members are aware, Foxborough started discussions internally at first and then with other communities about a concept of evaluating a regional emergency communication center, or the acronym RECC, R-E-C-C. Actually, it started in 2009 with Andy Gala, who had sponsored a meeting over at the Public Safety Building with surrounding communities. Although there was no traction at that time to expand our study any longer, I know that the King Philip towns that participated in that initial meeting banded together on their own and started their study to develop a unified communication center for Norfolk, Rentham, and Plainville. At some later time in 2011, they also had the town of Franklin join with them. So knowing that this was taking place adjacent to us, we banded together with 3 towns that had shown interest at the meeting, and I was able to secure for the community a grant to allow a feasibility study. The town picked a vendor, Webb Consulting, that had a great deal of experience, and as a group, we spent approximately $88,000 to have an evaluation done for the community. The study took place with an initial meeting in December of 2012 and was concluded in late June of 2013. Some of the key factors that the study evaluated was the site, governance, staffing, and equipment. It provided in the full report a comprehensive look at both technology and information systems, as well as a business plan for the operation of the rec. The critical idea when we're blending agencies is not necessarily a savings of money, but an enhancement of service to the communities in our area. Although many of the communities would see an increase in the costs of operation, and Foxborough was the one community that would have a slight reduction in our individual costs, the idea is again to enhance our emergency response. The summary of the process that you have seen talks about some of the major issues. I think one of the things that was surprising as a result of the study, that our total calls to our dispatch center more mirrors Norwood in terms of the volume of calls that we handle. I guess our one difference being our emergency calls account for 54%, where the non-emergency calls are 46% of the call volume. The study, or the full study, went into some detail about different issues such as training as well as human resources. And some of the key findings, one, the location that was identified in the study would be behind our own public safety building. The rec would have to approach the community to see if land would be made available adjacent to the parking lot that's been built behind the auditorium. Again, because of the costs being higher, the consultant stated that it might not be feasible to enter into the rec at this time, and also legislation that they held off on issuing the study because they anticipated certain legislation that would allow recs to be created would be approved. However, the session ended without any change in legislation for the establishment of these recs. The study also spoke about having a fifth community involved, and although myself and other chiefs had contacted some of our surrounding towns outside of our service district, there were no particular towns that were interested in joining the group at that time. Based on the recommendations from the consultant and the effort that was put in it, unfortunately at this time I think we would have to table the study to see if the necessary legislation comes forward and to try and identify other communities that might want to join us. There is some talk amongst the original towns, Norwood, Walpole, and Medfield, that some of those towns that participated in the study at this time are not planning on going forward for their own various reasons. So that is where it stands at this time. If the board has any comments or questions.
John?
What could the state do? I mean, what's the legislation? What could it do to make this different and make it more economically viable?
Well, it wouldn't necessarily make it more economically viable, but it would set up criteria to have a governing board of directors. One of the suggestions found in the full study is having town managers, police chiefs, and fire chiefs from each of the communities form a board of directors. That board of directors representing the communities would hire and appoint a director for the rec center, as well as other support personnel and dispatch staff. The one benefit of having a rec would be all the capital costs would be borne by the state E911 system. However, the day-to-day operational costs would still be have to be split amongst the communities, most usually based on population.
Yeah, but we read this probably 2 months ago, and, at that time, it was, the consultant said at this point it's not economically viable, so, your suggestion is to table it until there's more information or another contiguous community might want to join?
Well, I think until we get additional communities that may be interested, again, feedback from some of the other communities after reviewing the study is there might not be the political willpower now in those communities to continue with the project.
Thanks.
Right, any questions?
No, that was really, my question was about, can you get replacement communities? So that's something you'd wait until the legislation before you begin that process.
Well, I think we have to see what the legislation is going forward, also to see if there would be communities that would want to participate. The study was comprehensive enough that we have the floor plan. The architect has done the work in terms of setting up what should be, and a lot of issues have been identified, whether it's the placement because of where we are centralized and have potentially available land. That would be a key factor for getting other communities perhaps to be involved. But again, I don't think it would take long if indeed we wanted to resurrect this operation to move forward with it.
Okay, thank you.
Ginny?
Yeah, from what I read in the study, also, there was a concern that a lot of funding would be needed from the state and from the federal government, and at this time, that is not forthcoming because of legislation and programs. So I agree with you that this probably should be tabled, until the funding aspect is more concrete, and to see what the towns now that are willing to participate, see what they do in the future. Yeah, so, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, regionalization is a funny thing because everyone says regionalization is good because you get a broader and you can share resources. Every time we try to regionalize something, we look at what with the VSO, there's a mentality of us and theirs, and unless it's really, really broken, it's hard to go out and try to invent pathways to different managers and different selectmen. So it's just it's a very hard thing to do, and we look at it with, even talking about electric power and regionalization always comes back to police and fire. But unless it's really broken and it needs fixing, people kind of back off. So I can see there's not a lot of political might because there's not a big need. Could it be better if we do it? Maybe. But the resources and the costs and the studies seems somewhat overwhelming. So it always comes back to every town does their own thing. Unless the population is so small, then you end up with regional schools and things like that. But from and this is what it seems like it always comes back to, from a town perspective, from fire and safety, it's not broken in Foxborough. Could it be better? Maybe, but do you see a big benefit by going through this long process, or do we just say leave well enough alone?
I think the system that we've developed here in Foxborough, the new facility that was built with specific concerns about centralizing our dispatch and emergency response services.
Centralizing to Foxborough?
Right, well,
Yeah.
centralizing at the station, having fire and police in the same facility.
Mm-hmm.
When we designed the building, the communication systems, we designed it for the future of Foxborough with, quite honestly, a limited thought to changing or regionalizing.
Mm-hmm.
And the system, even though, we perceive ourselves as a bedroom community and much smaller than Norwood. Again, the number of calls that we receive into the dispatch center is only a few thousand less than a much more concentrated and populated community at Norwood. So we're able to handle that, and I think that's because we've got a very talented staff that works in the dispatch center to make sure that both firemen and police officers get the information they need and that we respond appropriately to the calls that we do get from the community.
So on that thought, if there was a call from outside the community, Plainville or if there's a larger situation, are we more first responders to other communities, or are they first responders to us because we don't have the facilities and staff?
Actually, the rec would be a separate entity that all the 911 calls and business calls would go into, and they would not necessarily have a Foxborough dispatcher or a Sharon dispatcher or a Walpole dispatcher. They'd be a dispatcher and would be looking at screens to determine which emergency response for that community based on the call that they get.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be a dispatcher from each town getting all the calls. It would be a team of dispatchers getting calls and then dispatching the appropriate resource within the community the call came from.
Okay. Thank you.
Because I take it we're going to, the mind of the board is to shelve this into further notice?
Well, the chief is suggesting that, so sure.
Yeah, well, we're going to take his advice, so. All right, well, great, then that's what we'll do.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks.
All right, thank you
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the Loss Control Committee, no overnight parking signs in municipal parking lots. Bob, you brought this up a little while ago, and I take Sandra's here to speak on it all of a sudden.
Yeah, so Loss Control has been working on this. We've been having the monthly meetings, as you know, and it's been very instrumental in saving us some costs with the insurance companies for our insurance base. One of the things that has become an issue is parking at some of the municipal lots. We had an issue last winter in the town hall lot. I know the schools have had some issues over the years. So Sandra has a little bit more history on this than I do. So she's been active in the Loss Control Committee as well. So if she would like to speak on the issue to maybe clarify for the board position of the Loss Control Committee, and the chief has also been involved with it as well. So, yes.
Do you mind explaining to everybody what the loss control?
I will.
We know what it is,
will.
But
I will. I'm happy to. First of all, I'd like for you to know that last year the Loss Control Committee worked very hard to the point where we saved the town over $70,000 off of our insurance bill. And we did that because our charge as the Loss Control Committee is to investigate every accident, every incident, every workman's comp case that is filed with the town and find solutions so that they're not repeated. You know, if there's an accident in the cafeteria at the schools because someone slipped on the floor, you know, it's a case of providing rubber-proof matting. And we're very active. We work very hard. Ed is also a part of our committee and is very active with it. Barbara Kelly at the Highway Department is now taken over a part of our loss control, which we receive points from. Any policies that we've put in place for snow removal on our roofs. We receive credits off of our insurance bill at the end of the year. So we're always looking for ways to minimize not only for our town workers to keep them safe and to ensure that there are no accidents, but we're also looking for new programs to help our town to save money. And one of the issues that came up was the fact that we had people parking in our parking lots overnight, constantly, day in and day out. And it really comes into play in the wintertime when the highway department is trying to plow the lots. And it's not just the town building, it's the schools. I know that I spoke to Bill Euchner, and the school department will be also voting on this, the placement of the signs. He has suggested it. Our insurance company meets with us during these meetings, and they strongly suggest that we put these signs in place. The reason being is It's a very large parking lot at Town Hall. When we have any good amount of snow, pushing that snow into banks is a difficult thing for our workers to keep up with. But when we have cars that are parked along the edge of the parking lot, it becomes even more difficult. Last year, unfortunately, we had a resident's car who was parked there that was damaged. It cost us a good deal of money. It not only cost us money through the insurance company, but we lose points. So that at the end of the year, that $70,000 that, we received off of our bill this year, that's diminished. So we don't want to see that happen. We work very hard to try to get as much as we can from what Maya offers us on credits back. So it has been discussed at numerous meetings that the placement of these signs, be at not only school locations, which Bill Yukna has designated, but the town hall and the library and at the Council on Aging. Vicki has a very difficult time over there. She has people that are parking their cars, and it's a small area. It's very hard for our guys to get in and plow. And it's not only difficult for them, it's dangerous for them at some point too. So we're here tonight, Ed and I. We discussed this at the last meeting. Ed may like to speak a little bit about the towing situation because it would be his department that would be enforcement of this. So we're here tonight to ask that you authorize the placement of these signs.
Thank you. To follow up on what Sandra just said, we are just starting the wintertime parking ban. It will start on December 1st, so that people that park their cars between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. on town roads or blocking sidewalks are subject to a ticket. And certainly when we have snow occur within the community, the officers are sometimes forced to tow cars. Now, a lot of times we will try and find out who the owner of the car is. If it's a resident in the immediate area of the car, the officers will have them called. We'll go knocking on doors. But very often, sometimes we don't have an immediate person that we can contact, and we are forced to tow. It becomes more problematic when people specifically don't park on the streets, but park in one of our public parking lots that prevent the safe snow removal operation from taking place, so that you come in the morning and the lots aren't properly plowed, which poses a greater risk, I think, for the employees that work there as well. I think that if the signage does go in, if the board votes this, again, I think between the hours of 1 a.m. and 6 a.m., we shouldn't have cars in the lots that might pose a problematic issue, especially right now as we're going into the winter season. And I know that Sandra mentioned she spoke with Bill Yukna. I also had a conversation with the superintendent of schools on this matter so that the school committee could be made aware of it.
Okay. Any questions from the board, John?
No, I mean, I understand that people do park cars, especially at the IGO school. There's some neighbors that park cars there routinely, and they've been doing it for years, and it's never been a problem. But I think, if an ordinance was in place that said, look, everyone's on the same team, that you have to have your cars off the property so we can plow properly, I really don't have a problem with that. It's common sense.
Well, but they're also saying this is a year-round thing. This is no more parking there, period, between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m.
No, I get that.
Okay.
And I think that's a sound rule, because, if you have a car, you should put your car on your property.
All right.
I think it makes sense because especially our insurer is recommending that we put this in place. Obviously, we are impacted by the event that happened last year, so, ideally you want to avoid that from happening again, but I think especially with the insurance companies suggesting it, it's important to consider.
And I'm sure even for the residents with their insurance companies, for them to know that their vehicle is being parked on their own property, I'm sure is beneficial for them instead of having it parked in a municipal lot that's being plowed constantly during the evening.
Ginny?
No, I think it's a good idea for all the reasons explained by Sandra.
Thank you.
James?
Yeah, no, I spoke to Sandra earlier today on it. No, this has been advertised and been in our packet. I think this is the third time.
Mhm.
And I think last time we didn't vote on it because it
Right.
was new and there were some people. Same thing comes to my mind at the IGO school. Has there been any opposition or anyone in town that
I've
says?
had no one call.
Nobody?
No.
Okay. Now, there's a separate sign for the library.
Yes.
And then there's a standard no parking overnight, please take notice. That's
Right.
all municipal lots? What about the one on County Street down for the train station?
That's already that way.
That's already, so nobody can park there
They
overnight?
can't now, no.
Okay. All right, I don't have any problem with this. Thank you.
Okay. I'll accept the motion.
Okay, I'll move that we accept the no overnight parking signage as suggested by the Loss Control Committee. You know, I guess the signs can be part of the exhibit, so they can be seen by anyone who wants to see them, so that's the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Do we have to mention the library sign also?
Well, I said that all the signs that are suggested by the Loss Control Committee,
okay.
so that would be inclusive.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just have one thing. I had given you the sign for North Street that we were gonna, is that gonna be on the agenda at
It's
some
going to be on a
point?
future agenda.
Yeah.
I've talked to the chief about it, and maybe the three of us can have a discussion. Maybe he can answer questions for you that,
Okay.
you know, may take care of the problem or not, you know, so.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're right back on schedule. For the 8:30, we have the MIIA game fees to discuss.
Should be enough, I have more evening.
Okay, name for the record, please. Not that I haven't seen you for 6-7 years.
Hi, I'm Richard Pearson, the Associate Executive Director of the MIAA. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for accommodating your schedule to allow us to return just a few weeks after I visited with you last week to support your approval of the opportunity to have our Super Bowls again at the stadium. And as I stated to you at that time, we're very excited for December 7th. We now know who those 12 teams are that are going to be participating in the 6 Super Bowls. Please don't ask me every single one because I don't know if I can remember them all off the top of my head, but it's going to be an exciting time for the first state championship here at the stadium. As you know about the MIA, probably from the many years we've sat and presented to you, we're a nonprofit organization that serves 220,000 plus student athletes, 372 member schools. We offer 33 MIA sports. What you also probably know, and having discussed this with you before, is that of those many sports that we offer, many are subsidized in whole or in part by 3 of our larger sports, being football, ice hockey, and basketball. So the revenue that we generate from those large sports really help to fund cross-country meets, Nordic and alpine skiing, swimming, volleyball, different events throughout the year that actually probably operate in a deficit. And so every piece of revenue that we can gain and put together to support those sports is really important to us. And so we've come to you every year asking for your consideration to waive the extra service charge, the ticket service charge that has been on your tickets. We also, if you don't know this already, we don't charge tournament registration fees to our association member schools. So once they make the tournaments, whenever that is in each of the 3 seasons, they are entered into the tournament based upon their records with no extra fees that we charge them. We have lost over the years some federal grants that have really helped us and to support our educational athletics initiatives. So over the many years, we've had a little bit of roller coaster and fluctuation in all those profits and all those things we needed to support. And the document I just gave you there is our foundation document of who we are as an association. Those are the 5 pillars of athletics, educational athletics, that we work to support each and every day at the association, of wellness, sportsmanship, leadership, community service, and coaches education. And everything we do revolves around that. And that's what we are looking for to support each and every day. With all of that said, we have appreciated your efforts and your consideration over the 6 years to waive that fee. As you discuss this, the waiver or the discussion of the fee, we would like to propose to you on behalf of the association, our member schools, that to thank you for all the years of waiving the fee, that maybe you consider a reduced fee as opposed to $2.55, which is probably what's contracted or out there on record, that you would consider one of the reduced fees that you have already approved for other organizations here at the stadium. And we would suggest maybe a $1.47 fee, which is already active, as you have approved for the Revolution. I believe that's in the contracts you have with the Revolution and maybe some other events as well. And maybe that would be a fair understanding and a fair gesture or request of you, in understanding and appreciating what you've done for 6 years, but also understanding and appreciating what we're trying to do for our educational athletics and the students of the MIAA.
John, start with you.
Okay. Part of understanding the flow of money is really to go back to the root. And the thing is, right, I'm assuming that the ticket prices are still the same as last year, 15 for an adult and 12 for a child?
They are.
Okay. And the craft organization still donates the stadium. Did the craft organization, they must incur some costs that you have to reimburse them for?
All the costs that the craft association, they have to make it up with their concessions. So they donate the,
okay, so you're not reimbursing the craft organization for parking or anything like that?
No, we are not.
Okay, thanks. The way I figured it is if you took the $2.55 and ran it through, the attendance would be roughly 13,700 to perhaps close to 20,000, based on the weather and who's playing and proximity, et cetera. So that would represent roughly $35,000 to $50,000 to the town. The balance of that, if you took the $255 out of the 15 and the 12, that would be $12.45 and $9.45, which would flow to the MIAA, representing $185,288 to perhaps on the high side $264,700. And I did this math just so I understand how the money flows, and I just have a few questions for you, Rich. The money is collected by the MIAA. They sell the tickets, or does the Gillette Stadium sell the tickets?
The stadium sells the tickets.
Okay, so they're the holders of the money.
Absolutely.
Okay, now, based on our licensing agreement with the stadium, any event that sells a ticket, the town is, the event holder is obligated, we're not entitled, they're obligated to pay the town $2.55. Okay, so, and just use the scenario that $2.55, a check arrives and Randy puts it in the bank. By waiving this fee, it basically sidesteps one of the mechanical cash flows. If that check came to the town could then be benevolent and then say, oh, I would like to donate this amount of money to the MIAA. And I just see by waiving it, that's sort of, it's a donation. And I know the past boards have been benevolent and they've said that's how they want to handle it. The trouble is, if you look at the MIAA, you're a quasi-public organization. You are a nonprofit. But in fact, there's private organizations that are involved in it as well. And if you look at, I've heard debates on this thing for a number of years about the legality of this transfer. If the monies were put into the town coffers and then extracted from the town coffers and given to a nonprofit, that flies in the face of the state constitution. It says you shall not do this, and I think there was an opinion by Attorney Durensis a few years ago, which there was on the one hand, but I actually read the state constitution today. It's very different from the U.S. Constitution, but I wonder, how do you reconcile this based on the fact that the cash never really has flowed to the town, and then the town never really had the ability to act in a benevolent gesture to make a direct donation to the MIA, because I view it as that, just without that mechanism of coming to the town and going back out.
I certainly can't reconcile the legality of it and the research you've done, because I don't know that, and I don't understand the legalities, and I haven't read the Constitution, so.
Okay.
Your presentation to the board is your presentation to the board about that.
No, and again, I don't think anybody's, not benevolent. I mean, I think they all appreciate what you do. It's just, we're trying to get it right. And I mean, the MIAA is still getting somewhere about $150,000 to $214,000. And, the town, when the stadium lease was established, I'm sure the folks who negotiated that didn't imagine, well, maybe they did, high school football games being there, but they never carved that out. They said, any time you sell a ticket, the town is obligated to get that money. And and they left it at that.
Well, again, I presented our association what we do. You can do the math on what $2.55 is for a $15 ticket or a $12 ticket, and what $1.47 is. It's 21% on a $12 ticket. It's 17% of the ticket price on a $15 ticket, which is a pretty high percentage of those very low cost tickets. I think you can do the math on all those, and it's really a decision for you as a board whether this opportunity and this offer would work for you, and whether you understand and are able to support the endeavor and the direction of what our association is trying to do. I told you already that there are 12 sports that are always operating in deficit and need highly funded from the organization. So that's what we've tried to do each and every time. We try to offer a great venue for our students to come to Gillette Stadium. We certainly hope and expect that when that average of 17,000 people, which is what the average is over the past 6 years, come to town, that they will also, visit the restaurants and then spend some time in the town too. So we're hoping that we understand that Foxborough has to raise taxes and raise money, and hopefully that our fans will do that for you as well too, and that the opportunity for a reduction in fee will allow us to continue some of the programming that we do.
Now, you had said the $1.47. That we currently do that for the Revolution.
That's my understanding, yes.
When did that begin, and what were the circumstances by which we accepted that?
I think you probably know all the contracts. I do believe there are multiple. I believe there are probably multiple fees and surcharges for different contracts that you have with the stadium.
Okay,
I do believe $1.47 is one of them for the Revolution.
Okay, all right.
We have Randy Scollins here. Are you glad to bring us up to date on the cash?
Sure. To answer the question specifically, the current rate of $1.47 for football games and regular soccer games has been the price escalated over time with CPI from the beginning. It's just that's the way the lease is structured. Is football games and regular soccer games, meaning non-international events, are that lower amount, and then any other event is at the higher amount. So it's always been that way. It's not been
Richard
discounted.
has it backwards? Is that what you're telling me?
Pardon?
He has it backwards?
No, he's got it right. It's just that there was never a discount given after the lease was established. The lease has been this way from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. So the 147 didn't escalate over the years for football.
It did. It was a lower amount, probably closer to $1. When the lease went into effect in 2001, and it's escalated to $1.47, just like the $2.55 was a lower number at that point, and it's escalated over time as well. My point is that the ticket fee for the regular season soccer games has never been discounted. That's just the way that the lease was structured from the beginning. It's the same fee for regular soccer as it is for football, and always has been.
So if we're talking about a high school Super Bowl, we're talking about $1.47 or $2.55?
$2.55 because it's another event. It's not NFL football, and it's not regular soccer.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Rich, for your presentation. For consistency purposes, I think you know where I've stood on this position the past. This will be my 4th year voting the way I do. Fifth, right? Well, no, 4th, because I didn't quite understand it the first year. Now I do. But I do value very much what you bring to all of the communities in Massachusetts. And I look at this situation as, we have an agreement with all of the taxpayers in Foxborough. Everyone pays their real estate taxes. We have an agreement that with the stadium that provides us with payment in lieu of taxes, And so as I would not feel that we have the authority as the Board of Selectmen to waive any individual residents' taxes, I would, equate this to a similar situation where for this particular event, the payment in lieu of taxes is how the town gets their revenue. And so I guess because also municipalities cannot be in a charitable, cannot take charitable actions by law, I would view that or suggest respectfully that the discussion be between Maya and the stadium organization to determine if there's a way to affect that $2.55 in that manner.
Ginny?
Okay, thanks, Mr. Pearson, for your presentation. I just have a couple of comments that I want to make. Myers, a great professional organization that organizes sporting events for private and public schools throughout the state. I applaud the Kraft organization for donating the use of Gillette Stadium for the upcoming football games, but I do not believe that Maya should be the entity requesting this waiver. The donation of the use of the stadium to Maya is a decision made by the Kraft organization, knowing full well of the lease agreement between it and the town of Foxborough. The agreement provides the town with $2.55 per ticket per event in lieu of real estate taxes, and that's the key, in lieu of real estate taxes. The $2.55 per ticket is money that belongs to the town, as are the residential and commercial real estate taxes that are paid to the town by homeowners and business owners. That is a fact regardless of any arrangement made between the Kraft organization and Maya. When this issue came before the board last year, I asked the Maya representative what would happen if the waiver were not granted. He said that no matter what, Maya would keep 100% of the ticket price so that Maya would not be impacted. In all the years that the ticket fee waiver has been requested, I never agreed with the Board of Selectmen decisions because I felt that the Board of Selectmen overstepped its bounds in granting the waiver at the expense of other taxpayers in Foxborough who pay real estate taxes. Last year was the first time that I voted as a member of the Board of Selectmen, and I will again vote against this waiver tonight. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, I think this is my fourth time looking at it. And I think the first couple times, I think the decision was made, or there was when you come into a town, or the Gillette, is it so many number of years and then you reconsider and then do another chunk of time? So this is the first year of a new series, is that correct?
I believe the original contract was for 3 years.
3 years.
And then there was another 3 years. So yeah, this would be a new series. That would be correct.
So part of the reason that I voted last time was rather than pull the rug out of something that was already started for my predecessors on the board, I was kind of on the fence going which way or the other. And the way that my mind worked with it was, sure, there's a lot of benefit to the town because you bring in a prestigious event, and Maya does a lot of good stuff. And you bring business into the town, and it was a feel-good thing to do. But I do understand the value of it, that it's not money coming into the revenue stream for the town. So I gave it a lot of thought of this, and I got phone calls and emails on probably which side I understood people to go on this. But I did pick up back in 2011, we asked that same question to our legal counsel. And the question was, do we have the right as a board to do it? And there was a memo that was given to us back in October and November of 2011, so 2 years ago. And the answer was yes and no. It's a charity, so it fits under the charitable organization criteria. But there's things in the charity like private schools and other entities that might not. So there was 7 or 8 bullet items that our council gave, and at the end, they referenced back to our lease with the stadium, and it says this under section 5E, I think it said, that the selectmen do have the ability to grant a waiver to a nonprofit. So it is in our ability to do it. So we're not overstepping the bounds, or we're not doing something that we don't have the rights to do. So then it kind of, you know, I'm reading this recommendation from the attorney saying there's no case law, it's unique, and it's really up to the selectmen, use your best judgment. So I don't think there is a right or a wrong answer on this, and I'm listening to my fellow board members, and there's good points on both sides. And what I was going to ask, where this is a second term, is there consideration for lessening the burden from the taxpayer on some of the money that was given up, and if you want to put it in that term. So if typically we're asking through the pilot or the lease agreement for $255, and you're willing to come to $147, it's not quite a 50-50 split. But the things I think we struggle with is trying to make things work from the businesses, from the taxpayers, and from the general, let's move forward with something that works for the town. And I think that's a good concession for this board to consider since the offer was made. And there's no concise answer from our legal counsel. And if you remember last year, we asked our town manager, he gave one answer. The year before, he gave a different answer. So I'm willing to consider, or I'm willing to vote for a reduction down to 147 and welcome Maya back to the town again, because I think it's a good program, and I think the benefit that you serve to the users of Maya, the different sports, and the ones that don't get the recognition like the football or the lesser sports, they struggle, and Maya does do a good service and a good job. And in the big picture of schemes of what it does to the town, yes, we're giving up some potential revenue, but I think the benefit outweighs that in this particular case, so I would support this.
Is that a motion?
I'd like to hear what you say, so you take the easy way off every time.
I can see this going, well, in common votes up here, I'm looking at a 2-2, because I would waive it as I do every year, because to me, it's about the kids. And it's always been about the kids, and I don't even bring the monetary value into it. And I'm sorry, that money just gets vacuumed up into the general fund. And yeah, I like to see this. We all up here want to see this town get all the tax revenue we can. That's what we do. But this is one I've annually waived. And but if it's going to be a concession where it meets in the middle, I'll support that. But I'd rather see the whole thing go away, as to continue the tradition that we've had here, letting the kids use the stadium. And I'm sure people make money off this, but I'm not going to read too deep into it. Okay, so that's my point.
Chairman, is there an opportunity for the public to speak on this?
Again, Dennis, this will be a 7th year in a row. Go ahead.
How about me? I'm new.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Yeah, because we're running on a schedule, 2 minutes apiece, please. Okay.
All right. Jeannie Dyer, 14 Hillcrest, number 3. It's sometimes a misconception that renters don't pay property tax. But of course, the people who own the complex pass the property tax on to us. And I've seen my rent increase more than it should because the people who own the complex are paying more than they should because the Board of Selectmen has had a great deal of largesse in years past. But when I want to give to a charitable organization, I like that choice to be mine and not made for me by another group. $1.47 sounds small, but $250,000 in taxpayer money has been given away by the board. That's a lot of money, and I don't think it should be minimized. Of course, the MIAA does wonderful things. I could name you numbers of charities that do wonderful things and that you would all feel great about supporting. I just don't want you giving my tax dollar away to them without my say. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, I teach in a high school not far from here, and I have many high school students who are athletes, and their parents supply them with iPads, iPods, and iPhones. And they have unlimited texting, and I'm sure those same parents can afford $2.55 when their son or daughter plays in a state or regional game. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, for allowing me to speak on this issue. I would underline to you the $250,000 that's been given away over the years before this year, of town, what would have been town revenues to do things like maybe offset a bit of the tax rate or take care of some things. I figure that's a quarter of the amount of money that the town donated to build our beautiful turf field, for example. I would comment also on the MIAA, and I do this as the retired principal of Millis High School. I've had dealings with the MIAA. They're a good organization. They do a lot of good things, but I want to stress this to you. They have their hand out right away when it comes to the gate from any tournament. They get their share before the gun goes off to start the event. So I don't want you to run off with the idea that they are a really charitable organization in the sense that we would think of a charitable organization. Athletics are wonderful, and it's a great thing. But it doesn't mean that Foxborough has to go above and beyond in giving away money that should come to the town, in support of the MIAA. Any more than the town should give away money to any other charitable organization. It just doesn't seem right. I think that was an accurate reading of the state constitution that Mr. Gray alluded to before, aside from the legal opinion that was expressed by our previous town council. So I would ask you folks who have said that you're going to vote in favor of this to think about it again. And I want to thank the people who have chosen to vote against it.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, just a quick follow-up on this, and I don't want people to think that we're giving away tax money just willy-nilly like this. We have a lease agreement that was negotiated through the Selectmen and through all the different committees that looked at payment in lieu of taxes. Okay, so there's an organization up there that doesn't pay taxes, but they get ticket prices that come back to the town. Okay, it's not a dollar for dollar. It's not a cost value, whatever. It's an agreement that was worked out with a lease that said if we do this, then it's good for the town. Part of that lease agreement that says the Selectman has the ability to, from time to time, grant for a charitable organization a waiver. Okay, that's all in the formula that was put in the lease. So maybe the lease was off, maybe the projections were off, but it's not let's start and go in a direction and there's no flexibility. So maybe this charitable step that we're taking is contemplated in the big picture of having a large national stadium in our town. When the lease was written, there wasn't a turf field, and I'm glad you brought up the turf field again, but the turf field is there now, and we're having many more events that was anticipated from the lease agreement. So we're having NCAA games, we're having college games, we're having concerts, because things change and there's a lot more use to that stadium. Now we can go back and redo the lease, but it gives the ability for the Selectmen at this table to decide if it's a worthwhile charity and it's something they want to do. We can vote yes or no, but it's not taking away tax money. It's not violating a state constitution, because that's the steps that this town voted on, just like they vote on every warrant article that gives ability to either to the voter or to the Selectmen. So I think that's where I'm coming from. And I don't want people to come back that says the tax bills are going to go up because we voted on this for a number of years.
Yeah, hang on. Okay.
So.
I just wanted to rebuttal on that by saying, there's a whole big entity up there of meals tax and hotel tax that's revenue come to the town that wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the other former entity called the stadium. And, everybody is gaining from having Patriots Place there. We would never even voted a meals tax or anything to this town or any other hotel tax if it wasn't for having that entity there. We wouldn't have done it just to the center of town and everybody in the center of town. Because we have the largest area collectively of restaurants, and of course the stadium itself, it's $1 million almost this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. And extra revenue to the town. So by bypassing this, we're still getting more revenue. Now, if this goes away, you lose that other revenue. It's kind of a split with me. So, and then I'll pass it to you, John.
Oh, Jim, just one item is that there's a component of the MIAA is also private schools.
Understood,
Okay?
yeah.
And again, here we are making potentially making a benevolent donation to private schools. And, you know, what I read in the law today was it's very clear that it has to be a public, non-for-profit. You know, if we had a CYO tournament up there and we granted a waiver, there'd be people howling, you know, that you can't do that.
Can't use that word.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no, I understand that, John, but what I'm going back to is we asked that specific question to our legal counsel. Can we do it? And that's what we paid the money for.
Right,
And he came back
I read
and
all the
said,
opinions today.
yeah, so the attorney came back and said, you know, there's nothing in here that he sees that you cannot do it. So if the attorney came back and said you can't do it because it doesn't meet the requirements of whatever, then I would say, well, we made a mistake from year after year after year, and we'll correct it this year. But that's not what I'm hearing.
Well, there's a lot of on the other hands, on the other hands, on the other hands.
Exactly.
There's a lot of that in there.
Yep. So I think that's why I'm saying there's no case law. It's unique. It's whatever you want to call it. But there's no definitive right or wrong. And because there's no definitive right or wrong, I think with the lease agreement, it gives us that ability to use our judgment. And an applicant that is getting a full waiver is now coming back and saying, look, we know it's, and probably, and I can't speak for you, I don't know why you're doing this, but I know you sat at that chair last year and the year before, and you hear people like Dennis Naughton speaking, and I'm not saying that in a bad term, but there is people out there that says, guys, it's our money, it's the town money, don't do it. So I think this was a nice gesture that we can meet in the middle and move on, and then recognize the larger benefit that you are going to get the meals tax, you are going to get the patrons, and you're going to get the goodwill, and you're going to get a positive experience. Yes, there might be some parts of that nonprofit that the pieces that make it up might not fit the bill, but unless someone tells me that nonprofit is not a 501c3 recognized by the state, it's a nonprofit. And that's...
The NFL's a nonprofit too. It is. You know? But I'm just saying, I'm taking a
We're
very...
getting all that money, we shouldn't be?
I know. No, that was in the news a few weeks ago. But I'm taking
Well,
a very mechanical
We need to move
Yeah,
on.
I understand.
on
I
this.
understand.
We need, Jenny, go ahead, we know we're moving on.
I'm sorry. I wanted to respond to Mr. Chairman. May I respond to just one thing?
Sure.
I just wanted to say that we thought long and hard about this. We felt it was the right thing to do to come to the town as a gesture of the goodwill and the efforts that you made and the challenge that you brought to the thinking process and to the table when you had to make these decisions in the past. And although the money would be well used by our organization and a full zero waiver would be the most valuable, we thought it was the right thing to do for you, for the town, and to respect all that you have to do. So that's why we came specifically with that, and that was exactly our goal.
Jenny?
Mr. Pearson, the MIAA should not even be requesting this waiver. You get 100% of your ticket price. That was told to me by the person who headed up the organization before. So you really have no ability to request this waiver. This is, if the stadium, if the craft organization decides to donate the facility to you, that's a wonderful thing. That's a decision that the organization is making to donate this to you. But they also have an agreement with the town of Foxborough. It's called payment in lieu of taxes. In other words, the town gets $2.55 per ticket, and that's the agreement that was made. And they don't pay real estate taxes, they pay it on the ticket price. I pay real estate taxes. You pay, businesses pay real estate taxes. So that's why I'm saying you should not even be requesting the waiver. Really, you have nothing to do with this. It's the craft organization who is donating to you, and they're including the payment in lieu of taxes that should ordinarily go into the town as part of their donation. Well, like the lady said, donate all you want, but you know what? Don't donate money that belongs to me. And that's why that's been I have never understood why the town has voted to waive it.
Okay, moving on. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to support the request. Just to clarify, we already granted the permit at the last hearing, so
Yes.
he's not asking for the permit.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to allow a reduction in accordance with our lease agreement dated January 1st, 2000, to reduce the ticket price for the Maya events for the Super Bowl from $255 down to $147.
Do I hear a second? Second with discussion. Discussion. If you've already stated, just move on. I'll
Move on.
call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Okay, I'll entertain another motion. Motion fails, 3-2.
That's a motion? What are you saying?
Entertain another motion. That
Oh, okay.
motion fails 3-2.
Oh, I see what you're saying,
Entertain
okay.
another motion. I mean, if you're gonna vote no, just say no.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we, I'll put it in the affirmative, is that we grant the waiver to the MIAA for this season's Super Bowls.
Second.
It's already been done.
No.
Oh, you
Waiver.
okay? You're
Waiver.
He's
right.
granting a
The waiver,
whole
right,
waiver.
The waiver is not to the MIAA. They have nothing to do
Well, it's,
with
It's
the
present-
waiving of the payment in lieu of taxes, the $2.55.
But Ginny, that's the request.
that's the request is from the MIA.
So
we're gonna
I'll
go-
put it in the request.
I mean, next year, if that's an issue, we'll just have to make sure it's addressed before it comes to the table. If you wanna talk to Sandra about that. So you made a motion, John, to waive,
To waive the ticket fee
As requested.
as requested by the MIAA.
okay, and you
Second.
second, Lorraine. Okay, no more discussion, right?
Under discussion, can I just ask, has anyone picked up, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but the original lease agreement and read it from the beginning to the end? So you understand that there are provisions in there for charitable? So, okay.
And it's an option. It's not that we have to. It's an
We
option.
don't have to do anything, but
Right.
it's in there for what I understood,
But-
and I
but
think I
Jim,
understand the
Jim,
reason
just so
for
it's
it.
clear,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, we have the ability to make a benevolent gesture. We do, and it's been done in the past.
Yeah.
However, I'm looking out for the interest of the taxpayers throughout the town who don't have an opportunity to come and have their taxes reduced. An agreement's an agreement, no matter who the proponent, no matter who requests, we have to honor that agreement. Now, you know, benevolence is one thing. I mean, I've known Richard forever, I know the MIA, they're great people. However, we have to look out for the best interest of the taxpayer, and that's where I'm going.
And I understand that, and I think we're going in this exact same direction. I'm looking at it from a larger picture. I'm looking at it from the meals tax. I'm looking at it from, you know, who knows if they're going to come again next year. I'm looking at it from the restaurants, the retail, the whole, you know, buying gas in the center. I'm adding up those pennies, and, you know, to cut your nose off to spite your face on one thing, I'm afraid we're going in the wrong direction on this.
The railroad don't
So-
come into town, boys, there's no supplies, that's the way I look at it.
No,
so-
but Jim, did you see the numbers? I mean, they're going to bring in somewhere between 185 to 200 plus $250,000 that they're going to get from the net. That's after the money that the town.
And that's
has.
over, yeah, correct. But I'm also looking, I mean, we're starting to going in a circle, but.
We're doing their
you know,
job now. I mean,
You
what
look
comes
at
down
the big picture of the meals tax and the property tax and all that stuff, put it all in the equation. I think we do an injustice when we're looking at, you know, the morals of, do we give back this amount when we're losing pictures of the larger amount? That's my
You got
point. I think we all
police
understand
details,
it.
fire department details, people that work the stadium that'll make money. I understand what you're saying, but there's a revenue. You know, back when the stadium or the crafts were talking about leaving to go to Hartford, okay? The reason why the state of Massachusetts put, I believe, $90 million in infrastructure to the highway.
68,
How much?
69
$69
million.
million infrastructure to the highway is because in 1 year, they would lose over $100,000 in state tax from losing that entity. And I think in a smaller scale, that's what we're talking about. You're gonna lose the state would have lost $100 million a year in revenue. So it was a no-brainer to put the $69,000 into it. It's the same thing. It's a smaller scale. These entities start leaving. Yeah, they're locked for this year, but next year, say, you know what, we're going to Boston, we can play at BC or UMass, they're building a new stadium, I think, or whatever. Then you lose it, and it's gone. We're trying to work collaboratively together. There wouldn't be parking lots making money across the street. That land would be there, whatever it'd be used for, if there wasn't a stadium that didn't support the parking. Everything supports itself. I mean, everybody together. If you cut it off here, it's gonna run out. If you leave the circle flowing, it's gonna keep flowing together. It's a minute amount of money to let the kids enjoy their lives, playing a Super Bowl game there. If you take it away, what about the juniors that wanna play there next year, possibly play there? Then no, it's not coming, because we didn't get the MIA, wasn't happy. And then them making an executive decision. I've been to those games. I've watched the kids play. I've seen the teams win. It's a small price, John. That's all it is.
I know it's a small price.
Mark, it's not the MIAA.
That's not, I understand.
Wait a
You're
minute.
saying
They
the
get
application's wrong.
100% of the ticket price. That's what I was told last year. 100% of it, so it doesn't make any difference whether we waive the fee or not. They get 100% of their ticket price. They are gonna be making money.
Yeah, they're gonna get either, we'll round it off again, $200,000 or $250,000. It's
But
still gonna come out of there.
We have an agreement with the stadium. In lieu of real estate taxes, we get a fee of $2.55 per ticket.
Right.
That's what we get.
And there's a clause.
If the craft organization decides to donate the stadium for these tournaments, well, that's very generous of them. That's very nice of them. But still, we have an agreement. They have an agreement with this town that we get $2.55 per ticket in lieu of real estate taxes.
Okay.
Does anyone know why they put that clause in there? Was anyone on the board when they came up with the lease agreement?
No.
That the selectmen have the ability to provide a relief for a 501c3?
Probably.
There had to be a reason in there somewhere.
I bet you had a lot to do with Mrs. Kraft being involved with it, because she was very into charitable organizations. That would be my first guess. But we need to end this discussion. We need to move on. I can count votes. The motion's on the table. John, in favor of the waiver. Lorraine seconded it. All those in favor?
Right.
All those against? Okay, let's move on. 3-2. We could talk about this till we're blue in the face.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, James, you're gonna bring us up to date on the abuse policy, reporting policy update?
Sure. You know how to clear a room, don't you? Anyone left?
Back in the day, I could.
Let me just start by passing this out. In your packet, there was a memo we put together called Foxborough Child Safety Committee. This is the same thing, but I put names to it. Let me just take you back a little bit. This is something that I think is probably one of the more important things that I'm trying to accomplish on the board since I've been here. Going back a year plus, we all know about what happened, and it's still going through a process, but William Sheehan spent considerable amount of time in this town, 20-plus years.
Yeah, all right, go ahead, sorry. I was just thinking something else.
So there's allegations of child molestation for throughout different sectors in the town that he worked, school, recreation, scouts, and that's being handled. Police chief and the FBI is still working on the who knew what, when, and where, and the legal part of it. But the one question that came from a lot of the victims was, how the hell did this go on for so long and nobody said anything, and how did it go on for so long and it didn't come into the light? So for the better part of a year, the selectmen, through different committee members, tried to put together a sexual abuse reporting policy. And it was somewhat of a failure. And the reason it was a failure is because we went to, quote, town government, and not a slight of any one particular person, but we asked for a policy to be put together, a document, and we would review it. And it kind of fell short. And throughout that year, there's been a lot of people that have been getting together and going to seminars and sessions into the State House and meeting with victims, trying to figure out, is there something together already that another town has done to recognize that there is a prevalence in any town of child abuse. So what I'm proposing here is a different approach with some goals and objectives, and I'm asking the board to consider appointing a committee. And basically the goal and objective of the committee is to raise awareness that there is circumstances where children are abused, and in our particular case on town property. And the objective is to come up with a code of conduct, some training of organizations, and a protocol of reporting. And you may ask, why are we doing it? We have a tremendous amount of property. We have fields, recreation facilities, camps, schools that invite groups and sporting events, and there's not a lot of checks and balances. So over the year, we've been meeting with different groups. So what I'm bringing you is 7 sectors of the community, and I'll go through it quick. Public schools, recreation, public safety, religious institutions, town staff, residents, and private educational institutions. So we're reaching out to have a representative in each one of those sectors to meet together, bring in their expertise, come up with policies that basically says, if you want to coach in this town on our field that the town owns, you have to go through some type of protocol. You have to go through a little bit of training, some awareness, some do's and some don'ts. And at the end of that exercise of putting this group together, I want to run it for a year, and then we would vote on this as a warrant article at the following year, similar to we appoint a conservation commission or appoint a historic commission. This commission would be its child safety committee. And briefly, the 7 people that we've been working with and that want to work on these separate sectors, for instance, on the public school sector, Superintendent Deb Spinelli said she would be very willing to assist. And I look at the school as a group that already has an entity, and they do training very well, and they have protocol, so we would probably learn from that. From recreation, it was probably the crux of a lot of the potential stuff with kids. Jeff Downs from the Board of Recreation. From public safety, Detective Tim O'Leary, who is a detective now, used to be a sergeant or youth crisis officer, and has been dealing with kind of the liaison between the kids and the school. From the Religious Institute, Pastor Bill Dudley from the Union Church. From the town staff, Vicki Lowe, who is the Director of Council on Aging, who already has a lot of protocol set up for the seniors, and a lot of the stuff that is prevalent there we could probably grab and use. Bob Correa, who is a resident and very well aware of the Sheehan era. And then Linda Walsh for the private educational social institute category, where she was a former selectman, and she's very involved with the Foxborough Junior Chamber of Commerce. So I'm asking the board to consider this draft that I put together, which I won't go into the details, but they have the power and duties of serving without compensation, the duration, their objectives, and then come back to us in 2014, the end of December, with a written report that evaluates the program and comes up with a recommendation to move forward for I guess, codification and for final enactment of this.
So they're going to develop the program?
They will develop the code of conduct, the training and protocol,
Okay.
in reaching out to all the different experts and put something together, correct?
And this was really the framework that Reverend Dudley laid out perhaps a month ago?
No,
It's a little different.
He
We-
requested this committee, did you not?
Well, a year ago,
Yeah.
we started working on it, and we ended up doing it almost to the point where we asked our Human Resources Director, Town Manager, to bring us something.
Mhm.
And in fairness to them, there is no something that has been done in other towns. So it was kind of they're kind of chasing the tail out there.
No, just to be clear,
Yeah.
I think a committee dealing with this is a whole lot better than a piece of paper.
I think that's how we got to
Right.
this point, because it's a community issue, and I think the community has to be aware of it and then kind of help themselves on this, and that's what this is about.
Now, Jim, you had gone to a seminar on this topic?
I went to a seminar. It was a seminar that was made up of a bunch of different professionals and speakers and victims. And when I got there, I found myself sitting with Chief O'Leary, Deb Spinelli, Deb Giardino, the rec director, Bill Dudley, another resident, Linda Walsh came. And it was something that wasn't coordinated per se with all the different departments, but we were the only town that was well represented. For instance, there were people from the Big Brother, Big Sister group, because as you can imagine, it's prevalent in that issue, in that area. There was all different sport groups and stuff, but there was nobody from a town that collectively said this is something that we want to address. And I think that Foxborough was recognized very well for doing that. And I think if we get through this year and come up with this program, I think it's going to be something that other towns will be very willing to listen to and use.
No, it's good to see Foxborough in the lead on this.
Yeah, I think it's very worthwhile. And there's been a lot of good ideas, and I end up being the spokesman, but I see Linda Walsh sitting here. She's from day one has been working on this. Bill Dudley, this afternoon, Mark and I sat with Norfolk
Child
advocacy group, and there's a lot of nonprofits that are just dying to come in and help us, but nobody to kind of put it all together in one place. And I think this reaches out to far ends of every area of the town and puts it in one place.
John, you all set?
Yeah, at the end of 1 year, they're going to come back with recommendations in which we will render down into policy.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
yeah.
I think the report
That's the
every
objective.
2 months, right? to get-
Well, right now, what this says is by December 31st, this group, after having met over a year's period, will come to the selectmen with a written report. And they could say, look, the goals and objectives are perfect, we're staying with it. Or they could say, we've been meeting for a year and we want to broaden it or reduce it. But come up with a committee that is pretty on target from a year's worth of work. And then I'd like to bring it to the town meeting to enact it as a committee that has standing and is in our bylaw.
Maureen?
Jim, I think the Child Safety Committee, that I really like all of the components
Mhm.
that comprise that. I think I could envision, as you come to bring forward recommendations, that we would involve Labor Council
Yep.
for review. And one thing I just wanted to suggest, again, to consider in the goal, to raise awareness of the prevalence and circumstances in which children are being abused and neglected, as opposed to just singling out sexually abused.
That's something that we talked about as well,
Both
broader.
things you just brought
Yeah.
up, it's kind
Because
of
typically-
coincidental with both things you just said we brought up today with
Okay.
Tara,
Mhm.
and they're very accurate, so.
Okay, because
that-
I think,
but we
the abuse
figured-
and neglect often precedes the sexual abuse.
We figured that we let the committee run with this, just form it
Yeah.
and give them some ideas and.
The
So this is an ad hoc committee until we codify it.
Correct. Yep.
one question I have, though, for Bob really is, we're, again, I know there's great frustration along the way dealing with this issue, but where we have, our recreation department, again, to me, is our Achilles heel. I'm not comfortable with waiting for a year to have policies in place which already exist with mandated reporters such as the police department or the school department.
We don't
And
even
again-
know if that's the whole thing. We don't even know a
Well,
lot
just-
of that information yet.
Just so you know, we had some meetings a couple of months ago. Cindy was asked to reach out to the AG's office. She made a call initially, did not get a response. She sent a couple of letters and sent another email, and she's just not getting any response. I actually called myself to the AG's office today, to the area that I deal with, because I saw in your recommendation that something be done with the general bylaw, and I was concerned you were talking about a bylaw that doesn't deal with the committee, but maybe I misread that. So when I talked to the AG's office at the municipal law unit that handles approval of bylaws, there is nothing in existence from any other town at this point.
Correct, yeah.
So if I misread that part of it, I'm just concerned that it's going in a direction that,
Yeah, and it's a valid concern, and we've gone back and forth. You want to put restrictions that might not have legal standing. We're not putting it, my objective is not to put a policy as part of a bylaw. The bylaw is, and a good analogy is, if you go to the bylaw, there's a recreation board,
Sure.
Board of Recreation.
Yeah, now I understand from
Yeah,
the discussion
it says
today.
it's got to have
When I
6
read
people
that,
or whatever, yeah.
So that's fine, I don't have a
Yep.
problem with that part of it. But, Cindy has reached out to the AG's office. My opinion, reading the statute, the rec board is a mandated report. I think Debbie is recognizing herself as a
Yeah.
mandated report. So we're gonna treat it like that anyways, and, we'll continue to try to get the answer from the
Yeah.
AG's office.
So Bob, one of the seminars that we went to, it was a speaker, and he said, okay, how many of you are mandated reporters? And, they raised their hand. How many of you had training on it? Or how many of you had read the requirements? And it went from, 90% to one person. Unless it's fluid and there's training, anyone can quote MGL, whatever. But, and I'm not picking on Foxborough, but if you go to any town, most of the people that are mandated reporters might know they are, but have never had training, or they don't do it yearly like they're supposed to. So what this committee does is just basically, it's a gentle reminder from the municipal part to the recreation to everything. And there's a lot of energy and excitement to finally get something going that's comprehensive. So I think at the end of this exercise, if the people in town that are supposed to be mandated reporters don't know if they are, this committee, through website, through seminars, through pamphlets, they'll find out pretty quick. So.
Okay.
Again, just my concern is where we have a recognized area that are mandated reporters, that if there's a way to, again, there are policies that exist out there that are used by people who are mandated reporters. I'm concerned that we go for another full year without policies or procedures in place for our mandated reporters.
Bob and Cindy are still going down that avenue. This is just something to move forward for the future.
So you're still working on it?
Oh, those letters are going to get answered. I mean, who's mandated?
I don't think this sets aside any of the mandatory reporting.
Nothing.
Oh, absolutely not.
This is
No.
just a separate entity to move forward for the town.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right.
So,
I think the only question we had was the Board of Recreation. We clearly know that the police, fire, Council on Aging has their own mandated reporter aspects for the elders. And the recreation was an area, obviously the schools are mandated
Yep.
reporters. Nurses, doctors, all of those kind of things. But the rec, there was maybe a gray area there. But I think we all, erring on the side of caution, believe that they're mandated reporters.
Yeah. So if you ask, we had the discussion with someone that is a professional on that, and it was a no-brainer. Of course they are.
Yeah, and we
Now,
believe,
yeah.
Cindy has said that they are, Debbie
Yep.
believes that they are, I believe that they are. but-
So the recognition, the training, the checklist that they've gone through it is so if you go over to the school department, and this is why I'm excited that Deb Spinelli is going to be on this.
Mhm.
If you go over to the school, they've got those checks, they've got the training over the summer, they know exactly who is in the other areas of town might not be there, I don't know. But this committee with Debbie on it is going to bring that knowledge to Vicki Lowe, and Vicki Lowe is going to say, well, our Council on Aging, and believe me, the Council on Aging has the same issues that
Sure.
we do with the children. So that's this kind of brainstorm of people together would then go back to Cindy and kind of coordinate back and forth. So it's a catalyst.
I think it's a great idea, and I was just cautioning before because the group was trying to reach out to mandate that people who work at Town Hall that don't deal with children be required to do these things.
Yeah.
I was just throwing caution.
Yeah.
There's certain employees, you can't mandate. You know, Kevin did his thing last year with Darkness to Light through Debbie and Tony Calcia from the Y, and I would say 95% of the people at Town Hall and employees in town took the training.
Sure.
So
yeah.
it's not against taking the training, it's just, you just could be careful when you mandate things to people who are not required
Right to do it. Yep.
Just a caution.
Yep.
Ginny?
No, I think it's a good idea. I think it speaks to your, Bob's concerns that he had. But more importantly, I think it speaks to Jim's concerns that he's had over the past months. And I think this committee is a really good first step. And I think a lot of issues are going to be resolved and brought to light. And hopefully Fox will be much better for it.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Thank you.
Jimmy, you want to make it?
I'll make a motion for the Board of Selectmen to adopt the Foxborough Child Safety Committee protocol per the handout today, dated November 26th, with specific appointments to the 7 people on the list.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All those in favor? Got a 5-0.
Thank you all, appreciate it.
It's a good program.
Very nice.
Bob, we got some issues to discuss in executive session tonight. Do you have an idea what that's going to take? Because I'm going to...
5 minutes.
All right. All right, so I'm going to give 5 minutes each because we're going to be out of here by 10. On the Racino Casino discussion, what I wanted to bring up is the fact that you've had multiple cities and towns vote against this, and starting with Foxborough, obviously. And now you've had a petition signed that reached about 90,000 votes, James, am I accurate? And they only need 65,000 certified?
75 to certify it.
So it's basically, the legislation is been asked by petition to put on the ballot for the next state election to vote on
Rescind it?
rescinding the gambling legislation. I forget the exact,
Repeal the deal.
what's the law, what was the?
Basically to repeal the gaming
Gaming,
law.
yeah, but that 120C or whatever it was. To repeal the gaming laws for this state of Massachusetts. So I would suggest that this board write a letter urging our state senator, because, let me back up a little bit here. The state senate can still say no. They can still say, you know what, I know there was a petition and they want us to put it on the ballot. They can still say no. So I think now's the time to start, say, does this board as a whole want to say, all right, you know what, you need to support this petition and vote in favor of putting it on the ballot? Is that an avenue we want to go down as a board? Because I do.
I don't know the, I didn't know they had the power. If you get to 75,000, they can still veto it?
No, they
No,
can
Can
say,
what happens is you get if the petition passed muster and all that, they get the proper number of signatures, they're good signatures and everything, and then it goes before the legislature, and the legislature votes whether or not it goes on the ballot or not. So the
Okay.
legislature can say no, or it can say yes. But I'm not sure if this goes on the ballot, because I thought this legislation had to go before the Supreme Judicial Court. Is that, am I mistaken on that?
I'm not sure.
Because there were two.
I didn't know you were.
There were two there were two repeal petitions, the
Yeah.
gas tax repeal
Right.
and the casino. And one of them really has to go before the Supreme Judicial Court, and I can't remember which one it is. But to your point, even if, like I said, even if the signatures are good and everything, the legislature has to vote to put it on the ballot, and the legislature can vote no.
and that's why I'm
So we
saying I
should-
think we need to
right.
write a
Right.
letter, compose a letter. And I know I've had Ginny compose a letter for me in the past for other things, and would you be willing to try and compose a letter for the board? And then,
Well, Bob can do that.
well, he's got a lot to do too.
You want me to do it? I don't
I mean, he's got I'm trying not to
Yeah.
kill Bob here.
Oh, all right.
You know?
No, I mean, I don't want
It's
to,
not a problem writing a letter.
I don't want to overstep my bounds is in regard to.
Well, you know what,
No.
if you guys collectively want to get together, get some notes together and make a letter, and I'm asking for the board to support this, to send it to Timothy and Jay Barrels and say, listen, the people have spoken, and they want it
Well, also,
on the ballot.
they've received the correct number of signatures, they've collected them, but they haven't, the official count hasn't been, they officially have not.
They have until December 4th to turn them into the Secretary of
To
State's
state.
office.
So that it's not
The
official.
town clerk's offices have until December 2nd to certify the signatures.
Yeah.
We've completed most of the petitions that have been presented in Foxborough.
Right.
And, they're just being picked up by the advocates, and then they'll be turned into the Secretary of State's office, so.
But I just don't think there's time to waste here. I think we gotta send a letter and send a message now, and maybe other towns are gonna piggyback on this, because out of multiple towns that have been approached, it's been landslides against, except for 2. And you know what? I think that this is something that everybody wanted on the ballot. Well, here's a chance. Let's put it on the ballot, and hopefully the legislation does that. Legislators, I mean. So is there any sense from the board to write this letter?
No, absolutely, I'm all in favor.
Lorraine, yeah?
Yep.
James, all right, so we'll have Ginny and Bob get together, try and compose a letter that represents the board and the people of Foxborough. And then we'll look at it at our next meeting or 2 meetings from now, and then because it's gonna take 2 weeks to get it even, out if we approve the letter. And then we'll all sign it and send it on its way. All right.
Before we move on from this topic.
I thought this was going to be a different topic, to be honest with you.
And I thought it was, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be too, but I wanted to
Well-
bring that up before I forgot, because I'm.
Yeah, so I think closer to home, I mean, there's North Attleboro. I downloaded the North Attleboro Rentham in, what was it, the last one? North Attleboro Rentham in Mansfield.
Yeah.
They have their surrounding community agreements. And Foxborough has not had one. Now, if you remember, going back, Mark and I met with representatives from Penn National and Plain Ridge, and then this board directed Dick Gellerman as our counsel to reach out or to let Penn National reach in and kind of negotiate back and forth. Now, we haven't gotten anything back from Dick. I know he's been working.
He's been trying to negotiate with them, and, what he's looking for is a little direction from this board, because what he's been talking to them about is just the social impacts. So I guess some other questions have been raised by the Racino Committee, and I know, Ginny, you've raised the water issue, and so he's curious as to, where you want him to expend his energies towards this agreement. And, we are going to be soon approaching the deadline, and, then it's going to go to arbitration if we don't have an agreement. So, he hasn't made a lot of headway with them because, Jim will probably tell you from reading the agreements, the other towns have agreed to wait the year period or whatever they have in their agreements to do an assessment of.
After it's built and running.
After it's built and all of that. That obviously hasn't been the approach that Dick has been taking with them. And so, he's made some overtures to them about a fund to, take care of any socials and have monies available to the town. But, if there are other issues that you want him to address, now would be the time to do it. I think, I'm just, from my overall view of the thing, I don't know that there's a lot of concern about the traffic, because most of the traffic would be on Route 1 and 495. There may be some additional traffic on some of the side roads, but I think the biggest areas of concern would be major highways that could, deal with the traffic. But, and then the water issue, I have talked to Roger Hill. He's not overly concerned about that. He's more concerned about a 40B project that would be across the street that would have more impact on the water than, a racino of the size that they're talking about. Now, if they go to expand it, they would have to come back and talk about some of those issues. So he wasn't overly concerned because he thought the DEP would, be able to mandate, control over water issues, and something of the size that they were initially talking about would not be huge concerns. But that's, it's a decision the board has to make to give him some directions.
Has Dick reviewed the Racino Review Committee summary of impact and mitigation analysis? Do you know if he has a copy of those?
I believe he has seen it, but I can...
Because this talks about total mitigation of $643,928 in year one, and then $640,000 each year subsequent. And there was just an article in the paper, actually, Easton...
I've already made him aware of that, and Jack
Easton was
Martin raised
requesting
that.
$1 million a
I've
year.
sent that to him, so...
Didn't they reject the offer?
They rejected the offer, but, I think, I'm...
Rainham?
Yeah, for Rainham.
Rainham offered $375,000, and they rejected that number, I guess.
Looking at what they were talking about as what that was mitigation for, I think, to me, makes this number pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rest of the board thinks about the $640,000.
Okay.
No, I was going to say, we've all received the Racino Committee report. Can we vote to accept the report and then forward it to Dick for consideration? And that's the direction coming from the board? Or?
I don't think you have to vote to accept it. They've presented it to you. I think,
Use it as a...
If you want me to provide that to Dick, then...
Well, is it consensus of the board that you want Dick to consider those things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a report from a committee. There's some things on there that I probably don't agree with, and there's some things that I don't agree with that I think should be more, but I think it's a good starting point. This is what I'm thinking about it. When we sat down with Penn National, I look at it from my expertise, if there is such a thing, even though I don't do the gambling. When I bring a project into the town, they look at it and they say, okay, study the traffic, study the lighting, study the noise, studying the fencing. We hire our experts and we do a traffic analysis and we say, okay, this is where we are at a starting point for all these different sectors. And then we think we're going to be the impact, and that's the mitigation. Now, when we sat with Penn National, this was when they first came in, and I looked at the report that Plain Ridge did. And I think the general understanding is, look, we all gamble at some level. We buy scratch tickets. Our community, there's no communities that, that doesn't do that. So there's a certain percentage in each community that already has the baseline up here. If you bring in a casino or a slot house, that percentage is going to go up with you're in a certain radius, and there's reports and numbers to support it. And I talked to this about the town manager in Plainville, and I think it's very reasonable to say, okay, there is going to be an impact, and what is that impact going to be? Now, our Racino committee started looking at that to quantify and qualify it. In the discussion I had with the town manager of Plainville, it is reasonable that if you are going to be impacted, there should be some mitigation. The Gaming Commission says it. When we sat down with Penn National said, we have these programs, we do training, there isn't going to be impact, but if there is an impact, it's covered by whatever fees that we pay the state. So my feeling, and what I said to them, and it hasn't changed, I don't want to be chasing my tail a year from now or 2 years now trying to find out what our baseline is. That baseline needs to be studied, whether it's sitting down with Vicki Lowe and saying, okay, these are the people that are in our town that are impacted by losing the mortgage because of gambling or something, but that study needs to get done. We don't have the money to do this study. So I think Penn National has to come to us rather than us chasing them and saying, we will do this for you, we will study this, we will provide, or if we can't study, we'll recognize that increased percentage can manifest itself in these departments, and here's mitigation. I do not want to wait, and I think what they were saying is once it's built, 60 days later they'll look at it. 60 days later the paint is still wet, and there's not going to be any impact from gambling addiction. You're going to see that 3 or 4 or 5 years later. So, if they don't want to come to us, what's there to... if you go down and download the reports from North Attleboro and Rentham, there's some things in there that I think we would be interested in, but I think it misses the boat on the impact from the social side.
I think we're going to have to continue this conversation to the next meeting, because we got to do action, and we got Bob
Just
to discuss with. Yep.
One more quick question, Bob. When we were at the meeting over in Rentham, Town of Franklin, the town manager had talked about what they were looking at for mitigation.
As far as I know, they had conversations, they're not going to be a surrounding community, and they were satisfied with.
They're not going to be?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is the general consensus is to have Dick
let-
Ellerman go back and keep dialoguing, or are we saying,
No,
what
no,
are we
keep
saying?
going. I think so. Is that what we were saying?
And we submit this to Dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll talk to you about.
Do you
getting a
want to put
copy of
this on the
that.
next agenda to discuss further in 2 weeks?
Well, I don't know what the timeline is that the agreements have to be finalized or not finalized. Do you remember what that is?
It's supposed to be 30 days after you're named as surrounding community. I don't ever, know
Well,
that.
beyond
we've-
that.
yeah. That the state
End of the
accepts,
month.
that
I thought we
that
had
the
been-
state accepts you as a surrounding
30.
community.
Oh, it's a state
Yeah.
accepting it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So,
Okay. And there is a December 4th meeting where the Mass
Yes.
Gaming Commission is coming to Plainville
Yeah.
to discuss it, so be cognizant of that date.
Well, I think you should put it on the agenda, but if we don't have any information, we
Yeah,
can,
we just,
you know,
we
Yeah.
can do that.
Okay.
Move to
So
the
obviously, we're
next one.
not getting to outside meetings again. All right, you ready, John, to do action?
I'm ready.
Did it.
Okay, first action item is a request by First and Goal for 2 one-day all-alcoholic liquor licenses, and this is to coincide with anticipated playoff games. These are 2 dates and then another 2 dates, and then if there's a title game. The dates are Saturday, January 4th, Sunday, January 5th, Saturday, January 11th, and Sunday, January 12th, and if there is an AFC title game, Sunday, January 19th.
You could think it was called the other day.
Yeah. This is for, some may be familiar with this, is Fred Schmerlis's 2014 Patriots playoff tailgate party held at 59 Washington Street. He's had this, and I'm trying to find out how many years.
Multiple years.
Multiple years.
Yeah.
and you approved the ones for the regular season, this is just for the playoffs.
So I move that we grant this 2 one-day liquor licenses to First and Goal.
Second.
Discussion?
With the discussion, with the recommendation of Sandra Herman, because the dates may change, right?
Yeah, she'll add the dates in, they're not already in, you just
Gotcha.
would sign the.
Okay.
It's a floating
She'll add the
schedule.
dates in when
Yeah.
Okay.
when she knows the dates, if there are.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next, John.
Item number 2 is a request by the Foxborough J.C.'s, permission to hang banners around the common. And the banners, for those watching, simply say Happy Holidays, and they're sponsored by the Foxborough J.C.'s. So I move that we accept the Foxborough J.C.'s request to hang banners around the common, and thank the Foxborough J.C.'s for this service.
Second.
And just a quick shout out, I mean, they're hanging the banners, but the DPW has stepped up to put them up and take them down free of charge. So
Okay.
thank you to the DPW for doing that.
The J.C.'s won't be climbing trees.
No, no.
Liability. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next.
The next is a donation to the Conservation Commission, and this is a gift acceptance, and it's a donation from Alan Curtis, who's making a donation to the Conservation Gift Fund in the amount of $1,200, and this was received on November 5th. And again, thank you, Mr. Alan Curtis, for your donation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And 4.
This is the 4th is from the Library Trustees, another gift acceptance, and I move that we accept the gift to the Library Trustees, and this is from Deborah Zacchius, 64 Harbortown, Abilene, Texas, and $50 from Nancy and Brew Nordstrom to Bent Path, Foxborough, Massachusetts. Thank you very much for your donation. It's appreciated.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 5.
The third request comes from Showcase Live. This is a request, and we have to get the dates right because the request is not on 12/31/2013, but it's really going into January 1st, 2014, and this is for an extension of operating hours from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. in order to host their New Year's event on beginning on December 31st, ending on January 1st, 2014.
Yeah, and there'll be more of these.
Yep.
But when we discussed them last time, wasn't there a caveat that the alcohol wouldn't be served later and food would be served?
The alcohol would stop at its normal time, they could just keep going. Is that how I remember it?
Let's read this carefully, because it's request for a 1-hour extension of operating hours.
I think in the past, we didn't extend the drinking. We just
It's
extended
two
the-
separate things. The operating hours are the business operating.
Serving hours are
Serving alcohol is separate.
Okay, so it's your understanding that this,
To go from 1 to 2, stay open later.
they'll terminate serving alcohol at their normal time?
Standard times, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll make that stipulation.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And the last
And
one?
not to be picky about it, but I think the reason that we had done it in the past was that extra hour where you can eat and relax and not leave right when the ball drops and hit the road. So.
Okay. Thank you.
The last action item comes as a letter from Candace LaChapelle, who is resigning from the Stadium Advisory Committee. So I'll move that we accept the resignation of Candace LaChapelle from the Stadium Advisory Committee. Candace, thank you for all the time and effort that you've put into serving the town of Foxborough.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for executive session.
I move that we end our regular session and enter into executive session. It's now 10 minutes of 10.
For,
Oh, thank you. To conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Board and Library, MISA, MFT, AFT, AFL-CIO, Highway and Water, AFS, CME.
second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll call, James?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mark, yes. Okay, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Mark,
Yes.
what the split civil 4-1